Good morning, Tallahassee. It's time to wake up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio. Here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi and Corey Clark.
Montana, Chromio, you know what it is when you hear that.
What's up? It's Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio, Wednesday edition of the program brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. You already know our names. Let's go ahead and do the show. Corey, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. Hump day. We made it to hump day. We're right at the beginning of hump day, so we're still not quite to the middle of the hump. I don't feel like you're to the middle of the hump until after Wednesday's over. You know what I mean? Until your Wednesday workday is over, but you see the top of the hump, and you're coming down. You can envision going down the other side.
It's like you're getting to the apex of the roller coaster. You know you're about to come down. You know you're.
Yeah, and that's just a free fall. That's nice and easy.
Yeah,
simple. Big roller coaster fan?
No, can't stand them at all. Hate them.
Okay, always have?
Always have.
I went with Brady to Six Flags last year with all his buddies. And I got these Fast Pass things because, of course, the lines were crazy. Like, it was an hour for every ride. I'm like, I'm not doing this. So we got these Fast Pass things. And if you ride about 3 or 4 roller coasters in the span of 20 minutes, man, as an old person, your equilibrium gets all effed up. Man. I was wrapped up for the day. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore, Brady. You go ride it again.
That's intense. Like 3 or 4 in 20 minutes? That's a lot.
3 or 4 in 30 minutes for sure. Yeah, you're like, I thought, it's going to be awesome. By my third one, I'm like, I'm not feeling great. I got to sit down. Just eat this cotton candy. That's a joke. I hate cotton candy. Is the worst. Maybe the worst food invention of all time.
Sugar on a stick.
It's great.
The guy who yells at it, Hauser. The guy
it's
the best.
It's so gross. It's just so gross. It's like eating insulation. It's just the texture of it, the way it is in your mouth. I remember as a kid being like, "Am I supposed to eat this or put it up in the roof
in the attic?" Yeah,
and no, it doesn't. Nothing. There's nothing redeeming about cotton candy.
Speaking of insulation in attics, I don't think there's any. I don't even know if there's shingles on half of the roof of the house I live in, because the kitchen, you can feel the heat radiating and permeating through the ceiling.
Oh, all right.
It's not comfortable in the kitchen.
Well,
around 3 p.m.
Right.
After that sun's been baking. But
man.
It's either the sun, it's either the golden rays or a golden shower coming down on me. So I'll take the golden rays as opposed to the golden shower.
I mean, all right.
It's been better. Anyhow, some news to pass along, folks.
Other than the golden showers. All right.
They announced yesterday Fan Day is coming. It's on August 19th, coincidentally my birthday. Also,
all right.
Coco Chanel and William Jefferson Clinton's birthday as well.
Oh, so you got a president and I got a president on our birthdays. That's cool.
Yeah. We got 45, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I do.
Sweet.
Sure.
Doors open at noon. It'll be at the Civic Center, 1 to 3 p.m. And per the email from Florida State, one item limit to get signed by Willie Taggart.
Just Willie Taggart, but what about if you want like 6 things signed by DeMarcus Christmas?
I think that's fine.
Okay. Like a Christmas tree? Christmas clothes, a stocking? I mean, I feel like you could make it a real Christmas
Jimbo's
theme.
Christmas tree.
Oh, yeah, there you go. But I mean, you get like DeMarcus can sign all sorts of Christmas gear.
Yeah, but Willie, I think even for his booster functions, if you read the fine print on the Seminole Boosters website, on those stops it even said, like, limit 1 photo with coach, 1 item signed.
That's fair. How many do you need?
I mean, if it's a booster function, I'm paying money. I should be able to hang out and get as much stuff signed by him as I want.
If you pay enough money, you can go spend the night at his house, I'm sure.
That's true.
It's just all a matter of levels of donation.
Did you ever go to a fan day when you were a kid?
No.
Any sporting team, anything?
No. Never really appealed to me that much, I guess.
Same.
I don't know if they had them a lot for like the pro sports teams.
The Bucks had one. I went to one when I was a kid when they were still wearing the orange and playing in old Tampa Stadium, the old sombrero. It was terrible. It was like they had Ian Beckles and Paul Gruber were like the best guys on the team. It was just trash.
It never really appealed to me much.
Yeah. But hey, folks, go out there
and
have
fun. Are they going
to
practice? Did it say in the email if they're going to have the open practice like they normally did?
I don't think they put that in the email. Somebody did ask on the tribal council whether or not that's going to happen, but there was no sort of insight into that. I'm looking at the email now. There's no mention about a practice on that day and whether it's open or closed or anything like that. So I don't know. It just says the event's free to the public and fans will be limited to 1 item per person for the team to sign. I take it back. That's what it says. 1 item per person for the team to sign. So I guess you can't have like a ball and the schedule poster and then keep passing it down the line for every single kid to sign.
Gotcha.
I guess. I don't know. I'm sure. I don't know how how much they'll enforce that. I'm not trying to tell you folks to break the rules, but
I mean, if you have a football and also a poster, I feel like you could make that work.
Bud Thacker won't be there. Is that the highlight of Florida State fan days?
Bud Thacker just throwing up on the bench press. He didn't throw up, but throwing up 500 pounds or whatever it was.
I thought his clean and jerk was more impressive, or snatch.
I don't remember it. I know that was the only one I went to, and that was the last one I went to.
Really? So you were
well,
there
I went
for
as
that.
a media member.
But you were there for that.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, fine. I mean, he was doing like, I think he also did 225 reps a bunch.
Okay.
And it was up to like, in the high 40s or 50s. But it was also like he was just slamming it off his chest. The exact way they tell you not to do it at the combine. So, I don't know. That's when I'm like, this isn't appeal. I need to do something else on my Sundays.
What was that, like 08, 09?
I feel like it.
07?
Yeah, 08, probably.
My gosh.
It was a dark, dark time.
Maybe it's like the dark ages instead of the lost decade.
Just
the dark ages.
They had some cool QB competition with Ponder and Weatherford and Devontae Richardson.
Throwing
into nets or throwing into tires or something.
All joking aside, I'd rather see like a skills competition sort of thing at a fan day, or even to replace all-star games. Like the Pro Bowl, I'd rather them just do like a field day with elementary school. Like make them do like a tug of war, make them do like some sort of, feats of strength or something. Then maybe have the quarterbacks throw the ball here and there. But I'd rather than actually see some sort of quasi
Superstars thing they used to do on ABC was really cool. Dion used to be in it. I mean, they used to get like Darryl Green. They got real players to do that kind of stuff.
It was good times. I miss those simpler times. And all right. So coming up today on War Chant, you got busy, man. You wrote another column, and then you're going to be back in the man cave. The top 40 is about to start. The top 40 players of 2018 for Florida State.
Right.
So I don't know if this is like who you will size up as being as of right now, this minute. These are who you think will be the 40 best players.
I went 40 most important. The 40 most important players.
40 most important, or is it like after the dust is settled, you think these guys are going to have the kids will have the best seasons? Like
mine was the 40 most important to the way I thought of it is to the success of the season.
Okay.
These 40 are the most important.
There's 85 kids on scholarship, so this is the top half of it.
Half, yeah, sure. It gets a little weird there from like 33 to 40 because you're like, okay.
Who's the floor? Who's the floor of the upper half?
I think I put, again, it's
like
just,
Kyle Myers?
I think I put Amari Gaynor.
Okay.
Because I feel like he could play a little bit. He was here in the spring. If he's good, he's rangy, he's aggressive, he might be a guy that can make some plays. But how do you differentiate between him and Babion Johnson? It's hard because, Babion Johnson, is he going to play?
Big Baby.
Big Baby? Is Big Baby going to play? I mean, you think he might, but where? Is he going to be the center? Because Everly's the center.
Right.
So where does Big Baby, where does he come out on the line? How much is he playing? And how do you compare that with Keith Gavin? So it's hard. It's hard to mix and match. I didn't put all the linebackers. I didn't try to clump all the linebackers together and all the running backs together. And I think I put Tamorrion Terry around 20.
All right.
But there's a part of me that thinks he could be like number 6.
Don't give it all away now. How many linebackers do you have, would you say? Is that the one position group that's probably the least represented in your top 40?
I think Gaynor was my 4th.
Wow.
I think so. Yeah, because maybe my 5th. I had Jackson, Emmett Rice, Brooks.
Man, you're really high on DeKalen Brooks.
I am, buddy. I think
I
think because they're high on him. So I think he's going to play a good bit.
I don't really feel like they sang that many high praises about him when we spoke, unless you've been having conversations off the record with other folks that
I don't tell you everybody I talk to, Aslan.
All right.
You understand?
See how it is. AKA the other guy.
Yeah. Oh, so you did read the column.
I did read the column.
I was wondering if you saw that. I was wondering if Ira would take it out, and he didn't. I was glad he didn't. Just made me laugh to type it.
I'm curious to see how this works because it's happened so many times. Being a subscriber of WarChant.com, you guys have done this. Us have done this top 40 thing forever. And even before that, it was just obviously preseason observations, and there'd be, this player's looked really good. Really surprised by the way this person has played. Very impressed by their performance. And then come fall, nothing.
Right.
Just nothing from these players. So I've been in the cycle for a little bit. So I've watched all these spring practices, and Nasir Upshur is probably the one guy that I've said the most positive things about. I'm like, well, he's actually been out there, getting a lot of reps, getting a lot of looks, making catches, blocks. But I wouldn't put any sort of like large sum of money on the fact that I think Nasir Upshur is going to have like a big season.
Right.
Because I don't want to be the guy that's like hyping him up, and then come October, we're sitting here in Florida State's, 4-3, and then someone's like, well, whatever, I'm the Nasir Upshur kid. Everything's going by the, sideways. And
most people don't really go back to that stuff that you write in July. They really don't. Some people hold it against you, but most people won't. They understand what this is.
Well, it's not so much them holding a grudge, but I'd be upset at myself. I'm like, well, what were you looking at? Like, you need to learn how to better evaluate players at a practice. Like, if you thought that was good, and then you obviously can't do anything on Saturdays, and what am I judging? What am I valuing? What am I seeing with my eyes? Because, I don't know. Like, I wasn't really in those practices that we got to watch. It's really just a skill position, guys, because it was the first two practices where we were able to see everything, where he opened the entire practice. Nobody was in pads. And then subsequent practices were, 15, 20 minutes. And you got to see some of that one-on-one stuff, the Oklahoma drills. There's nobody besides like Landon Dickerson, I thought. I'm trying to think. I don't really think anybody on the interior really I think DeMarcus Christmas held his own pretty good. I never saw DeMarcus Christmas really get beat badly or get beat, But like at linebacker, there's nobody that really flashed. And when I would see DeKalen Brooks, I'm like, all right, he doesn't look that fast to me, though, and he's undersized. And again, I don't know. I almost want to go back and listen to when we spoke to Harlan Barnett, because I think he or somebody mentioned the fact that they were going to go to maybe playing more than two line. They go maybe a more traditional 4-3 kind of, sort of set. But I still don't see in this day and age, as much as I've looked back on his history at Michigan State, what they run at Michigan State, what Nick Saban runs at Alabama, everything's 4-2-5. Everybody plays nickel corner. Everybody has a fifth defensive back. So I don't know where the sort of opportunity is for like a kid like DeKalen to maybe make a splash if Emmett Rice is healthy and Dontavius Jackson's lives up to his recruiting sort of chops.
Yeah, I just think that they want he's faster than those two guys, and I think he's
faster than Dontavius Jackson. I don't know if he's faster than Emmett Rice, though. I would think.
Well, you might be right. Emmett Rice might be faster. You just don't know with his coming off the injury. But I'm just Brooks kind of made some plays in practice when I watched, and then heard some things through the grapevine about how well he had been playing. And I think he led him in tackles in the spring game, and I know they're quote-unquote tackles. Right. But he can move, and I think he's one of those guys that, in whatever they call their star position, he's a guy that can cover. They think he can cover people. They think like the guy that we talked to David Teal about yesterday that just got kicked off Virginia
Luke
Tech
Reynolds.
Team. They listed him as a linebacker, but he wasn't, he's also a DB. Like, he could have been anything.
Right.
But he also had 70 tackles last year, and it's called whip linebacker, whatever they call that. He's about, I think he's about the same size as DeKalen Brooks. Like, just not big guys. They're kind of smaller guys that can run and are a little more physical.
He's 6'1", 185. Mook Reynolds.
But they have him as a linebacker. That's what he was called. He was around the line of
scrimmage.
He made
for
plays.
sure. But
so I think that's kind of what they envision that role.
DeKalen's like a good 215, 220, though, isn't he?
I don't think he's that big. I think he might. I think he's a little less than that. But either way, he can move, and I think they want speed on defense.
All right, fine. 5'10", 212 is what he's listed as.
Yeah, so that probably means he's 208, 207. So he's over 200, but he's what was Derwin James? And Derwin James was a safety. Like, he's like that hybrid type body type.
See, I think he's a man without an island. I think he is prototypical tweener. And prototypical is probably the wrong word to use. I think he's like quintessential tweener.
I think you're a quintessential tweener.
All right, whatever. Fine. I'm not going to take these insults. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. It's Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Wake up! 97.9 ESPN Radio's Wake Up War Chant. I'm Aslani's Court. It's brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. Don't forget, man, I should have said that in the first segment when everybody's listening. Renegade Express going down tomorrow. Get your calls in. Get your questions in on the Tribal Council. 850-792-5730. 850-7-YAKS-30. YAKS is Y-A-K-S.
And we obviously appreciate all the calls.
Definitely.
But maybe time yourself.
Yes.
Try to keep it under 30 seconds.
Speaking of our guy that didn't really want to be a, quote, featured caller, I went to you, our ombudsman.
Right.
Is that how you pronounce it? Ombudsman?
Yeah, ombudsman. Yeah.
Ombudsman. Our ethical moral compass. Like, he said he didn't think he wanted to be a featured caller, so we're not going to put his voice out there. I complimented his voice. He actually called back. He left 3 more messages.
Okay.
Each about 2 minutes long.
Okay.
And
he listens.
Yeah, he does listen. He says thanks for complimenting him on his voice. But he said that I missed his point. So I don't feel like I missed his point. And his point was the fact that he felt that we were glossing over the revenue gap and the fact that Alabama is able to do things to give them an edge that Florida State's not going to be able to compete with. And his whole thing is that, where we're going to be left behind, Florida State, is that they have guys who can act as consultants who can play and work with the players 24/7, 365, and can coach these players up year-round when nobody else can. And they use former defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators, former head coaches that have coached in the NFL between their stints. This is where we will be left behind because we won't have any positions at $500,000 apiece for these consultants.
Sure, but there are rules in place. You can only practice a certain amount of time.
Right.
You can only meet with players in the offseason a certain amount of time. Now, I get we can all roll our eyes and say, yeah, sure, they're only practicing this amount of time. They're only meeting this amount of time. I don't know what the hour restriction is, but there is an hour restriction per week during the regular season, and there's certainly one in the offseason when Nick Saban's not even supposed to be able to look at the guys, and neither are consultants. But whether that's happening or not, who knows? But that's Alabama. Is that happening at Florida? Is that happening at Clemson? Is that Alabama is such its own entity that nobody really truly competes with Alabama. Nobody does and hasn't for a decade, as long as that guy is there. So to use them as the one example of getting left behind, well, yeah, they've left everybody behind, except maybe Clemson. But even Clemson, they beat 2 out of 3 years. They're the better program. Clemson's the second best program in the country. Alabama is the best program in the country and has been for a decade. So, how many consultants does Clemson have? Florida, Georgia. That if that starts being the norm, where like the Bill Belichick's of the world retire and then come be a consultant in Tuscaloosa for $500,000 a year.
But the thing is, I don't think they were making that much money. I think they're limited how much money.
Yeah.
I don't think Damian Craig. I think they released the numbers on what he was making when he came here, and it was peanuts because he was still getting paid from LSU and Auburn. I think so. That's like Butch Jones was an analyst last year. I think because he got fired this year. I think he's actually on the staff now. He's an analyst at Alabama, but he's not going to make.
Sarkisian was an analyst, right? Before he became the OC when Kiffin left, right? Isn't that how that works?
So they're not making a bunch of money, but it's just like you go work for Nick Saban, you just rehabilitate yourself, and you're able to get a really good job.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't hurt, obviously, to have that. That is an advantage, and I think the NCAA should look into that. I think that should be limited. I think there should only be a certain amount of people on staff total, and that's it. That's all you can have. It doesn't make sense for Alabama to have 40 people on staff and Florida State to have 11, or to Florida to have 14. I think there should be it's not like they let Alabama have 120 players.
Yeah.
If there's a certain amount of slots for players, there should be a certain amount of slots for coaches, and that should be it. And that probably will be taken. I think that will probably happen sooner rather than later, where they limit the number of people that can just be on staff, period.
The headset thing, though, I mentioned it earlier. In the week or maybe last week, like that headset thing that passed that we joked about. I guess the New Mexico State coach was saying, 12 guys on headset. Like, golly, I'd have to have my AD and his wife to get to 12.
Right.
That's a good thing because a lot of I think Bruce Feldman wrote an article for The Athletic about coaches stealing signals, and I guess the crux of it, I didn't read it, but I saw people that summarized. I guess the crux of it ultimately was. It's gamesmanship more than anything. There's really not a huge decisive edge because the logistics that work into it. First, you have to identify what they're calling, make sure it's a legit thing, and then call it down to your players and then have them line up.
All in the span of 14 seconds.
Yeah, it's not very practical. Is that at the very least, this whole legislation about limiting guys with headsets is going to limit the amount of time they can spend trying to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of that is done in the prep week, the game week, where you notice what a call is, and the players know right away when they see a certain, a thumbs up or a certain thing on the board. They know what play is coming, I guess, is where you could, really make your bones with that. But how often does that happen? Right.
I think the story cited some coach literally would put his hands over his head in the shape of an O when they were in cover zero. So they just knew that they were going to get blitzed every single time they saw that guy put his hands up like that.
Oh, wow, that's something. That's funny.
So
why not just flash a big zero?
Yeah, just maybe mix it up a little bit, guys. That's all you guys got to do. But yeah, our buddy here, man, he left 3 messages. He wants us to actually call him to have a conversation off the air so he can better explain himself. But I get it. I know what you're saying. Listen, this and people, were kind of poking fun at you and I. Maybe not poking fun, but being, coming at us actually. That we're like, we're Pollyanna, I guess, when this whole revenue stuff. We're like, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, we appreciate the gravity of millions of dollars disparity between Florida State and other schools. But to me, this is almost like people that stress over the national deficit. Like, oh, my gosh, we're racking up the deficit. It's going to kill our grandchildren. Like, all right. We're doing all right now.
It hasn't yet.
Yeah, I don't worry too much about that.
So, we've talked about it. We had David Teal on here yesterday talking about it, and he made the point that I've made. If money was the only thing that mattered, Texas, Ohio State, and Texas A&M would win every year in everything.
They don't.
They don't at anything. Ohio State's won football. Texas hasn't won anything in a decade. Texas A&M hasn't won anything since anybody listening to this show was born. So, it can only do so much. Alabama isn't the best program in the country because of the money it spends. It's the best program in the country because of the head coach. If Nick Saban said, I want to just make $2 million a year, and I want to cut all my salaries for my assistants to $800,000 a year, they would still be the best program in the country. And I know they can afford Nick Saban where maybe Florida State or somebody else couldn't. I got that they kept him from Texas and they're paying him. What are they paying him? $10 million? $11 million?
He made 11 last year, but it was because the way his bonus was structured. I think he'll be back down to just 8 moving forward.
Yeah. Oh, just 8. Wow, yeah. That's something.
That was
so. It's just it's not everything, and it's not great if Vanderbilt's making $14 million more in TV revenue per year than Florida State. That is bass backwards. It makes 0 sense. Vanderbilt does not bring any eyeballs to TVs. Florida State brings a ton, but you hope that the ACC network can at least shrink the gap. That's all you're hoping for. It's not going to close it, but Florida State has never made as much money as Florida or Alabama or USC or Ohio State or Texas A&M ever, and they've always done okay. Texas A&M's made more money than Florida State every year for the last 70 or 80, I would imagine. They have more money in that state than Florida State does, and has it mattered? Has it really mattered? Is now the time that it starts to matter.
I guess that's what these people are arguing because they say that we're glossing over it or we don't.
But
understand the gravity.
If history is any indication, it has never mattered before.
Right.
But what about this spot in the landscape of college football, in the timeline of college football, makes that kind of revenue disparity a bigger deal than it was in 1997?
I think that there's more of a disparity. I mean, it might have been hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1993.
I would think, though, they've always made a gobs more money than Florida State in athletic revenue.
Sure.
Just because of the money they have and the boosters they have. It never buys them a championship, ever.
It's the visibility of the sport, too, right? I mean, there's less things you can really argue about year in and year out every year as a fan in the offseason, and this is kind of the new thing to hop aboard and kind of rally around.
But so we all assume Florida State will build the facility at some point.
Yes.
Then where's the discrepancy then?
Right.
Where are you behind them? Okay, their facility's a little bit better. It's also in College Station, folks. Go drive through that town one time. Try not to hit a horse. Try not to get dust in your mouth. You're still in College Station. You have some built-in advantages being in Tallahassee. So once you have a nice stadium, you pay your coaches well. It's very competitive, and it has been for years. You have a nice stadium. You'll have a nice football facility. You have a great fan base, a passionate fan base, and a fertile recruiting ground. What advantage is that extra money doing for Texas A&M? They can pay their assistants more? Great. So Jimbo can hire another Charles Kelly and overpay him and keep him? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what? It's all about the decisions the coaches make, not the money you throw at these guys, in my opinion. That's just, hey, you know what, folks? That's just my opinion. What do I know? I'm a bald radio show host.
Can I play devil's advocate real quick?
Oh, here we go. No, yeah, go ahead.
If Florida State had the money that all these other teams are flush with, wouldn't Jimbo Fisher never have even hired Charles Kelly? Wouldn't he have gotten his first option and gotten Jeff Collins?
Was that who his first option was?
Pretty sure. Or at least he was ahead. He was for sure ahead of Charles Kelly. I don't know if he was his top number one option, but he was definitely ahead of Charles Kelly. And I think the hubbub or the the sort of whispers around it was that he didn't get enough money to go after who he wanted on the first go around.
Yeah, but you're only talking about a difference of a few $100,000, right? Right.
But I guess if you have $5 million more,
but then
it makes
also,
you feel better about spending that kind of money.
But okay, so he didn't get him the first time around. But he's also, nobody held a gun to Jimbo's head and say, hey, Auburn wants Charles Kelly. This is your out. He can leave, and we can replace him with somebody else that's actually good at this job. And Jimbo's like, nope, let's give him what he wants to keep him to stay. Like, Jimbo fought for his job.
Yeah, you're right.
So that was a mistake. And I know for a fact Jimbo wanted somebody else when Stoops left. Somebody that he said was the best defensive coordinator in the country, but Florida State wouldn't pay the money to bring him over. So he was left with having to get Pruitt. How'd that work out?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes Jimbo's best, the guy he was at the top of his list, it wasn't always the best fit for Florida State. And, they would have been nice to keep Jeremy Pruitt for $600,000 for the next 3 or 4 years.
You going to tell the fam who it was? Give us a hint.
I really don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
Oh, come on.
I don't. I think.
How are you going to bring that out? And then
I think the guy ended up going to South Carolina, but I can't remember for sure. It was 5 years ago, man. There's not a lot of room left in this brain for that kind of stuff. That trivial matters like news.
How many yards did Danny McManus throw in the game against?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Notre Dame?
I can tell you if he won it or not.
We got to go to break, but I just want to kind of keep this rolling instead of stopping and restarting it. I mean, the one thing I went back and listened to the interview with David Teal that we did yesterday here on Wake Up War Champ, 97.9 ESPN Radio. It's obviously too late. It's way too late in the game. Like, what is Florida State doing in the ACC? Right? I mean, is there?
We're going to have that conversation.
I mean, is there anything more out of? Can you think of like another analogy? Whether it's a certain actor in a movie role or a certain person in a band to replace another person that just feels so, I don't want to say feels out of place because we've been in the ACC for so long now. But when he's talking about the Big Ten's, all these large land grant universities, the SEC has these huge public universities, and then ACC has a spate of public universities. It's like, and I know there's all these barriers that were in the way, but it's such a, when you think about it, we're right there. I mean, we're right in their footprint, but we're not part of them. And then we're them, I mean the SEC.
Yeah, but you compete against them, you recruit against them,
yeah.
Mainly. Florida State's not losing a lot of recruits to other ACC schools. It's to SEC schools they lose recruits to. So, yeah, it's always been kind of an odd fit. It's kind of, I remember when it happened in '92, like the first time Florida State played like at NC State at noon on a Raycom game. Uh-huh. I remember being with my dad going, God, this kind of sucks. This doesn't feel like real football. There's 9,000 people in the stands, and it's NC State. But you kind of, you've grown up with it now. We've grown up with it now, and it seems like it's a fine fit now because there is Clemson, there is Virginia Tech, there is Miami. But yeah, it's kind of an odd fit for. I think it's the oddest fit is for the Florida State fans who are mostly friends with other SEC. Like if there's trash talk, they're trash talking with other SEC fans because Florida State is kind of an SEC type fan base. And
right.
Like you mentioned, I think it's true. I think they pay more attention to the SEC than they do the rest of the ACC.
No, I don't think they do that.
No, I do. As far as like if there's a game on, like you mentioned, if it's Wake Forest playing NC State, yeah. Or if it's LSU playing Ole Miss, I think maybe I'm wrong. I think most Florida State fans, at least a strong portion of them, would watch the LSU Ole Miss game. I think they identify more with those fan bases than they do with the Wake Forest fan base, the Syracuse fan base, right. You're at Doak. How many of these ACC teams bring actual fans to Doak, where it's not just a pocket of 30 fans that are parents? Yeah. Who is it? Clemson? Virginia Tech, probably? That's it. Yeah. Everybody else, when Syracuse plays here, there's 11 people in orange in the stadium. But if LSU played here, or Tennessee, it'd be 8,000.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
So
yeah,
awesome,
that's
man.
Sure, I get that.
I can't say that.
And I don't think the SEC is this world's better football conference.
No.
But it's just more ingrained. Football is more ingrained, just like basketball is more ingrained in this conference.
So I'm saying it's just like we are.
But it worked out.
We're carnivores. We're like meat eaters. We love steak, and then we hang out with a bunch of vegetarians.
The wine and cheese crowd, as old Sam Cassell
yeah.
called the North Carolina fans.
Like bring Vanderbilt to the ACC and just let this be a fantastic, high academic standard conference that wins a lot of basketball championships, baseball championships.
So you think the ACC would trade Florida State for Vanderbilt?
No, but in terms of like fit
Well,
It just
sure,
makes sense.
but it makes sense for the ACC to do what they did, and I know there was reasons Florida State. There were certain institutions that didn't want Florida State in the SEC,
Right.
And the ACC was. You talk about people being ahead of their time. That was a great move by. I can't. Maybe it was Gene Corrigan, whoever the commissioner was at the time, to lock that up. Because think of all the money that Florida State made for this conference. I mean, it was one of the all-time great, maybe the best. When we talk about, 6 or 7 years ago when all the restructuring happened in conferences, still going back to 1992, that was the best decision a conference made when it came to one school. I don't think there's anything that's even close.
The Pac-12 getting Colorado. Come on.
Well, that's true. And Utah. I mean, think about all the money those skiers are giving the conference.
But in all that time, though,
Hippies.
I guess you have to give Swofford and the ACC credit, I guess, for trying. But, I mean, Syracuse hasn't been anything since Marvin Graves and Donovan McNabb. I mean, Miami's been down for a decade plus, really.
Yeah, but you got a Heisman Trophy winner, and you got Virginia Tech, who kind of carried the conference. Like, as David Teal said, how bad the conference was 10 years ago. Virginia Tech was the one sort of shining beacon that was pretty good. And even then, they weren't great, but they were pretty good until Florida State and Clemson got their acts together. But, yeah, the one that just baffles me is Pitt. They haven't done anything. They don't bring any eyeballs either. Neither does Syracuse. But at least Syracuse has basketball.
Yeah. Pitt had basketball.
They did, and then it fell off a cliff.
Jamie Dixon leave, and then that hasn't worked out all that well. Anyhow, this show's going out pretty well, though. We're going to do 2 more segments. Let's take a break. We'll be back. We'll talk some baseball later in the program. Also want to get back to this top 40 thing. We'll talk about it next. It's Wake Up War Chain, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Ready for action, nip it in the bud. We never relaxing. Outcast is everlasting. Not clashing, not at all. But see,
welcome back. It's Wake Up War Chain, 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by For the Table Hospitality. I'm Aslan. He is Corey. Corey, England, Croatia. Who's going to play England in the World Cup? Who you got?
Who's going to play England? Who's going to play? Who won? The France.
France.
Yeah. By the way, so I know I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be ugly American guy. I actually do appreciate the sport. Most of my friends are soccer fans. I have 2 big complaints with the sport of soccer. One, really, and it's an overriding, just general observation. It's the inexactitude of the rules, in the sense that it's the only sport where when the ball goes out of bounds or play is stopped completely because there's an injury, the clock still runs. Mm-hmm. Why would you not just stop the clock?
Because it's not our game. It's not our rules. It's not meant for our culture, our people.
But but that's not an answer. Why, when they were doing it, why when they were creating the sport, would they say, okay, instead of stopping the clock when Joey rides around on the ground like that for an hour and a half, let's just keep it going and then we'll add stoppage time at the end. Because it's never the exact. In fact, I want you to know. So who did Brazil? Brazil lost to Belgium.
We have lots of football talk about.
Hold on. So Brazil lost to Belgium in that match.
Yeah, look at you.
Because it frustrates me so much, the stoppage time compared to the real stoppage time that it should be. I timed every time there was an injury, every time there was a goal scored, every time there was a review, and how much stoppage time there really should have been. Uh-huh. And it was over 11 minutes.
Oh, wow.
The ref put up 5. That's what I'm talking about with the inexactitude. Or when the ball goes out of bounds at midfield. Literally, I saw it. It went right out of bounds at midfield. The dude throws it in 10 yards further towards the goal.
Oh, yeah, they do that
I
all the
hate
time.
that stuff.
Yeah.
You have refs on the sidelines. Why wouldn't you just say, hey, no. Right there is where the ball went out. And why is it like that? Why is there only one ref? They can't possibly see everything.
Well, they got side judge.
But they don't ever make calls. Why wouldn't you just have a ref in each third of the field?
They don't. That's just they've
exactly. It's just the way they've done it,
and they're fine with it. And I'm jealous of it because we don't even know what a catch is, and we have 27 camera angles, and we can't let things die.
That's true.
we can't let things die. And they're like, whatever, fine, just keep playing. We'll figure it out. And then your other complaint is obviously that they're always going down hurt when you don't even know if they're hurt or not.
Well, no, I don't have a problem with them trying to sell calls. Lord, watch James Harden play a basketball game. LeBron James acts like he gets, hit with a brick every time he goes up for a layup or can't believe a call. I get all that. It's when you don't get the call, or even when you do get the call, you still writhe around like you're in incredible pain when we all know you're not. We can see the replay, man. You got the call. Awesome. Hop back up. What's that for?
Yeah.
What's the point of that? That's the other thing I don't understand. But the main thing is the inexactitude with the time. I don't understand when the ball goes out of bounds, you don't just stop the clock. And then you start it back up when the ball gets back into play. And you just play 90 minutes. That's what they do in college soccer. They don't have stoppage time in college soccer here.
Oh, really?
No. They just stop the clock.
Oh.
The referee will put his hands up like an X, and the clock stops. And then on his whistle, it starts again.
Huh.
We can't do that in the rest of the world?
I guess not. There's some beauty, though, I think, to it just being so free-flowing, though. It gives it its sort of...
I just hate the
inexactitude.
Or as the French say, I don't know what.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the vagueness of, what is he going to put 4 minutes on the clock? Is he going to put 9? It's all just random in his hands.
I hear you. All right, speaking of random, top 40 players 2018. We're going to be filming those installments later today. They'll be released as we see fit on warchant.com and YouTube. The way it works, Corey, is that
this is my first time taking part in this.
Yeah, me too, but I'll be on the other side of the camera. We make the videos private so only our subscribers can see them.
There we go. See?
And then like two or three...
That's what Daddy's been talking about all along.
And then 2 or 3 days later, we'll make them public.
Oh, okay. All right.
To the grifters.
Yeah.
So that's how it'll work out.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask you, since we were talking about, obviously there's 85 guys on scholarship, top 40, it's your top half of your scholarship guys. Like, who was like the 40th guy? Who was the floor on the top half of like the 2013 team?
Oh, so top 40?
Yeah, who's the number 40 guy in 2013? Like Chad Abram? Or is it higher? I mean, like James Wilder? Or do you think James Wilder was higher than 40?
I think Wilder probably was higher than 40. Yeah, man. Chad Abram probably be a good guess, I would think. Kevin Haplia, the backup tight end.
Tyler Hunter? Or was Tyler Hunter hurt that year?
Tyler Hunter got hurt that year. Yeah, man, because all the other ones you kind of felt, they're going to be Terrence Smith maybe would have been somebody that you weren't sure. I don't think he started right away during that season. But everybody else you kind of knew, all right, they're important, and they're probably really good. Christian Green, somebody like that.
Who do you think you would have put number 1 before the season? Would you put a Jameis?
For most important, yeah. I think so. Yeah, and I think I would have had Benjamin in the top 5 just because if he became what he was supposed to become, what maybe that could do to the whole offense. That would have been hard. Rank those guys. Think about trying to just ranking the top 20 out of those guys.
Like going into that
where's
season?
Joyner? What's Rashad Green? Is he in front of Kelvin Benjamin or behind him?
See, I don't know. Like, don't you
Freeman?
put like Joyner number 1 almost going to that season? Because you're figuring he's the heart and soul. He's the leader of that team, the defense. Because we don't know anything about Jameis. We just know what we heard at practice.
But if you're going by who's going to be the most important, I thought that how he went would be very important in the season. And quite frankly, Joyner had been a nice player. He hadn't been a superstar at Florida State, so I don't think I'd have put him number 1. You hadn't really seen Darby and PJ. I don't think you'd seen PJ at all. Yeah. But you'd heard good things about him. You hadn't seen much of Darby. Jernigan would have been very, very high.
Yeah.
Stork, Cameron Irving, those guys would have been very high. And then, it's hard. Where did you put Carlos Williams? 30s? 20? I mean, he started that season as a safety. Right. You thought he'd be a good one and never really materialized.
Has he found his way back to the league, or is he just...
I don't think so, no.
After all the run-ins? That's a shame. All right, man. Step aside. One final segment. Let's talk about...
hold on. Oh, okay. Well, I got a question when we get back. That's a little teaser, folks.
Ooh.
A little teaser.
It's a question about...
It doesn't matter what it's about, folks. Just stay tuned. You'll see.
It doesn't even matter. It's Wake Up War Chant, 97.9 ESPN Radio.
You're locked in to Wake Up War Chant on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Absolutely dying to know question on the mind of Corey Clark. Corey, the floor is yours.
Okay, so this one's a little different, I have to imagine, when we've done top 40s in the past because of the quarterback situation.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell. Now. This doesn't mean this is the list that everybody has. The overall list, the general list. This is just my list. Mm-hmm. I had Francois at 4, and James Blackman at 5. What would you do with the quarterbacks if you're ranking the top 40 important players?
All right. So again, you're saying these players will have like the biggest impact on the season?
Yes. It's sort of. Or how their season goes will dictate how. But I don't know who's going to start.
Right.
So I don't want to put Francois or put Blackman at 5 and put Francois at 22 when Francois might be the starting quarterback.
But why would you put Francois 4 and Blackman 5? Why wouldn't you just at least do Blackman 4 or Francois 5?
Oh, I don't know what I did. I might have done that.
So this is hypothetical. Don't reveal who you put the quarterback.
No, I mean I really don't remember who I put first because it was just they were both going right behind each other.
Yeah. So Corey, Ira, Jeff, Cameron, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. his own show right here on ESPN.
Also Seminole headlines on this same station.
Correct. And then Gene Williams, they all they fill out their ballot. Gene has a formula, and then that's how the 40 are picked out. Where would I put the quarterbacks?
It's hard, right?
Oh yeah,
because
difficult.
there hasn't been one like this. Like I asked Ira about 2 years ago when it was Smag and Golson, or 3 years ago, whenever that was. He's like, yeah, I had Golson at 6 and Smag at 31. It's like because we all knew Golson was probably going to be the starter. We legit don't know who's going to be starting.
Yeah.
So it seems weird to have a big discrepancy, a big disparity between those two quarterbacks on a top 40 list when you don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, especially in July.
Yeah. So I kind of just
Oh man, yeah,
hard, right?
I still think I've thawed a little bit and given more credence to. I think DeAndre can be a more multifaceted weapon for Willie than James.
Sure.
But I also come back to your sort of approach where when they are going to do designed runs for James Blackman, it'll be him pulling the ball himself after Cam Akers has thumped somebody 7 times in a row on a drive. And there's going to be nobody off the right end, and he's just going to scamper for 15 yards. Because he had some good runs.
Yeah, he's not a statue.
Yeah, but he's not Johnny Manziel either. I still have to believe, I just still think that what we heard from Willie the offseason, spring, Blackman's 1, and I think DeAndre's 2. And
so
I
where
think
would you
for
put
DeAndre
him in
to
top
take
40?
It's
hard, right?
I'd put Blackman in the top 10 just because he's the quarterback. It's like the Heisman thing.
Right.
The Heisman's not the best player. It's the best offensive player on the best team.
He's also really important to the success of the team, whoever the starting quarterback
is. He, though? If it's going to be Cam running the ball crazy and maybe Kalen LeBourne and him both get 1,000-yard seasons, or, Jaquez gets 850, but he gets 12 touchdowns because he's always a goal line threat, might be more important than one of the quarterbacks. Defensively, maybe things change. Philosophically, maybe there's a big play guy in the secondary that's picking the ball off, maybe gets a couple, defensive touchdowns. Maybe DJ Matthews becomes like a really well-rounded special teams threat, and he's up there. I'd probably put Blackman somewhere in the top 10. I'd put Francois in the top 20.
But there could be a 10 or 12 player gap.
I'd put both on. I'd put probably Blackman between 7 and 10, and I'd probably put Francois between 15 and 18.
Yeah, but then there's a chance Francois is the starter, and that blows up the list. So the way Daddy did it, am I going to just start calling myself Daddy on the show?
So.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, man, that's what people do.
I just put them 4 and 5 and, kind of cut my losses. Just like, hey, man, one of these is going to be right. One of these is going to be wrong.
Right.
But here's the rationale.
As opposed to going bust on both of them.
Right. Yeah, like picking the wrong one to start. Yeah. Like James Blackman might not play but, 2 games
or Jacob Coker. I think Jacob Coker.
Yeah, Jacob Coker 19 on the list. No, man, he was not. He did not do anything in 2013. And so he was not important. So yeah, that was an interesting facet of this list in particular, was trying to figure out what to do with the quarterbacks.
All right, cool. Looking forward to that. All right, Corey, let's talk a little baseball.
Was that your show notes? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I got show notes. Actually, what I need to do is I need to buy note cards. I need to buy note cards.
Post-its.
Online note cards. Large, like 4x6. Not the 3x5 smaller ones, but the larger note cards. Gotcha. Unruled, just plain white.
Oh, all right.
And then different colored Sharpie markers. I'm just going to start writing out things that come to my mind because the whole typing things into my phone just doesn't feel organic. I need to grab something.
No,
and
I got you.
Tactile feedback, write stuff down. Baseball isn't on the list, though. But I think you guys probably talked about it on headlines. You teased it on Facebook. Try to solicit questions for the show by saying, "Want to talk about the baseball recruiting class?"
Oh, we actually didn't. We didn't speak a single word about baseball. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's your guys' loss on headlines is our profit on
right.
Up. So Cal Raleigh's gone. Cole State. Everybody got drafted left, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
which was expected, I think.
Right. Literally.
Kobe left too, right?
I think.
Yeah.
He said goodbye.
Which makes sense.
They added the kid that committed to LSU at some point. I think they lost a kid from Lakeland that got drafted by the Red Sox that they were maybe hoping was going to enroll.
They had one out of their, whatever it is, 8, 9 signees. Or I think they had 7 kids drafted that were recruits, but only one of them left. And it was a kid that was drafted in the 33rd round. Yeah. But he's a pitcher. I think he was a junior college pitcher.
Oh, okay. I thought it was some
he might be from Lakeland, but I think he might have been at Chipola or TCC, but he was given $130,000 and he bounced on the final day. But they kept... and I don't know how to pronounce the kid's name. Nander Day Sadas. I think we said he went to IMG. But what's crazy about him is I read a blog. I can't remember who had the number 1 pick in the draft this year. But early on in February,
the Tigers.
The Tigers, yeah, it was a Tigers blog where this guy was being touted. Nander was being touted as the first pick in the draft. He had that good an offseason as a junior in 2017 on the summer and fall circuit. He was that impressive that some of the baseball people were talking about him potentially being 1-1. Now, he did not have a good high school senior year. There's a lot of pressure that comes with those kind of expectations. He also had a huge number that nobody was going to give him. So he was probably, talent-wise, I think he was rated like the 46th best player in the country, overall prospect, and that includes college. But his price tag was so high that he priced himself out of being drafted. So you're getting a guy that was kind of a fringe first or second round pick, shortstop, 6'4", to come play at Florida State for the next 3 years, presumably. And then the kid at LSU was also kind of in the same boat, where he was a guy that his number was so high, he kind of priced himself out of the early round market. And now, so he's probably a fringe 3rd to 5th rounder that ended up, I think he got drafted in the 14th round, but didn't sign. Again, who is one of the most talented high school bats in the country. So they got these 2 guys coming in who are 2 of the better high school hitters in the United States. So that's kind of cool.
To a team that has a lame duck coach.
Yeah, well, think about that. And I talked to Meade about that. He talked about how proud he was of what him and Bell in 11 had accomplished, because those guys came here not knowing who their coach was going to be. Now they might be told stuff and like, hey, it's probably going to work out this way or that way or whatever. But there's no guarantee they know who they're going to be playing for in 2019 or 2020, I should say. And they still came to Florida State to play here, which is it kind of tells you all you need to know about the culture here and what this program, that these kids who are the best players in the country at their respective positions, or one of them, would come play at a program where they're not 100% sure who their head coach is going to be for 2 other 3 years here.
As of June 3rd, Perfect Game had him ranked as the number 6 overall player in the nation.
Who?
Nander De Sedas.
Think about that, man. How tall does this give his profile?
6'2", 190.
Yeah, he's like a wiry. I think they'll play him at shortstop. They might play him at third.
Yep.
I don't know what he'll be as a pro, if he'll be a shortstop or a third baseman. But man, that's something. And the other guy they think is one of the best power hitters for a high school hitter in the country. And I can't remember. It's Cabell, Cabell. He's probably on that list too. But that just says something about the way this program recruits, and the culture that it has, and the winning tradition it has, that you get these 2 guys who give up, they were offered a lot of money. They say no to that to come play at Florida State when they're not completely sure who their head coach will be.
Elijah Cabell, 38th overall ranked player in the nation.
Now remember, guys, the people that are ranked, high school kids get drafted a lot in Major League Baseball. That's why you have to draft. So when you're the number 6 and you're the number 38 overall prospect in the nation, and that means you're first round, second round, what are those? What do they call those middle rounds? Supplementary rounds. Yeah. You're one of those people. You're one of those supplemental round people. Both of them probably could have been millionaires.
the blurb on Elijah Cabell. Extremely fast bat, and the ball just flies off his barrel. Very fun to watch him hit. Huge power at Perfect Game Nationals. Very good at WWBA and Perfect Game All-American.
And he can run. I don't know how the Sades kid, if he can run. Obviously you want them both to be able to field. But you think about the pitching they have coming back, even losing some of the guys they lost. And you have, you have Mendoza and Albert.
Does Mendoza go to shortstop?
No, I think he'll stay at third.
Third?
I think he's too 6'5". I think he's too big to play shortstop. But he hasn't really shown that kind
first,
of range.
my bad. They didn't play first as a freshman?
He did, yeah. But I don't know.
Maybe put him at first and then put this Nander DeSedas kid at third base?
I think that would be a hard sell to Drew because, third basemen get drafted a lot higher than first baseman, typically. And he came here as a third baseman, and he turned out a lot of money to come here. I think that would be a hard sell. I think they'd probably move that kid to short or move him to second and have Salvatore.
Maybe move Salvatore to second.
Yeah, one of those.
And DeSedas to short. Who's going to play first, though? I mean, Rhett's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. They'll find somebody.
You don't worry about that?
No, you don't have to worry about that.
Whatever. Just sit the bag.
They'll find somebody.
Catch the ball.
They actually came kind of crazily. It wasn't just lock and shut that Cal Raleigh wasn't coming back to school, man. It got kind of dicey.
Stop it. He was always
got kind of dicey. If they weren't to hit what did we say? They paid over $200,000 over the slot.
Yeah.
If they were just going to pay him the slot and offer no more, I think it sounded like he'd be like, all right, well, I'll come back and get drafted high again next year.
That's one kid I just felt like this was – I will not begrudge that. That's the one guy, like, it made sense for sure to leave. It just felt like he made such growth, at least at the plate, from 17 to 18. It's like, it's hard to see him building off what he did.
It's funny how that baseball stuff works because they'll ask a kid, what will it take to sign you before the draft? And say he says his number is $850,000. $850,000 I'll come, not a penny less. And then they draft him where they say they're going to draft him, and then they offer him like $680,000.
Right.
Wouldn't you be like, hey, dude, why did you even ask? You asked me what I wanted. I told you my number. Now you want me to sign for $170,000 less than that? No.
Off to a bad start, right?
Yeah, right away. Just hit the number, and he could be in Pro Bowl right now. So it's always funny how those negotiations work. But it almost always works out where the kid, except Mississippi State, got 2 first-rounders coming to their school. Did you see that?
Uh-huh.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Stark Vegas, brother.
How can
everybody makes fun of it?
And we don't know for sure. They might go the JUCO route and just be out for a year and then go back in the.
I know the JT Ginn kid's already on campus.
The other kid, the Braves picked the kid 8th overall, and then didn't sign him. Only offered him 40% of slot because they were worried about a wrist injury. It's like, well, if you're worried about a wrist, why did you sign him?
Yeah.
So that was cool. Good times.
And hey, before we go, we got to mention this, and it's part of baseball too, so it kind of works nicely. Mike Bell last evening was. Officially, I guess we were able to report warchant.com. Irish fell on the all over it. This one, Corey. Mike Bell, pitching coach for Florida State, has accepted the head baseball coaching job at Pitt. So Mike Bell, former Florida State standout himself, has been a really good recruiter for the Noles. Has gone ahead and taken the Pitt job. I guess if you're in this game, you aspire, I guess, at some point, right, to be a head coach.
I would think most of them, and we know he did. I think his name was up for a job, and I can't remember if it was South Florida, Central Florida. If it was some school in the state of Florida where he was one of the finalists for the jobs a couple years ago. Yeah.
I wonder, though, like, would you not maybe hold out? It is the Pitt job. It's got its limitations. I figure maybe you'd hold out.
Hey, man, it's hard. It's a job in the ACC. Those are hard to turn down. And then you hope. Pitt, I mean, I feel like if you have 2 decent years at Pitt, you can just take another step up that ladder.
I guess maybe like the guy in Indiana, and you end up at Stark Vegas.
But yeah, I think that'd be really neat for him. He's a good guy. He's done a good job here.
All right, man. Wow, that was a really long segment. It was the last one of the day. We'll be back tomorrow
for a little Renegade Express.
Yeah, all right. Totally forgot.
Guys, seriously, if you're thinking about calling in, 30 seconds or less, we're going to start penalizing you. You should do a thing where after the 30th second, you just start sounding a horn in the middle of their question.
Okay.
Something like that, just to get them off the. We got to
train these guys.
Yeah, we can't have a minute and a half show. Just start a time. Yeah, every phone has a timer. Click it when it gets to about 28 seconds. Say wrapping up. Peace out. Love you guys.
He's Corey Maslon. Jeff Cameron coming up at 3.
These recruiting updates are nothing but fluff.
Are you wasting your time again on free blogs and social media to get the scoop on FSU recruiting?
Yeah, it's all bait and switch. Get me excited with a headline, but get nothing in return. You're on warchant.com. What's really going on with FSU recruiting?
Could be another top 5 class, but for the real scoop, you'll need to get your own War Chant subscription.
What's it cost?
Free. There's a 30-day trial offer. Just sign up and you'll get full access through signing day. And nobody has more accurate and timely information on recruiting than warchant.com.
You know I like free. Sign me up.
warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.